So today we are here talking about how we are not exempt from abusive experiences just because we're doing this deep work. I wanted to ask the question, do you find yourself revisiting old patterns, finding yourself in abusive conversations, being gaslit, that type of thing, and then you just feel like you're going backwards? You're like, how all of a sudden you're asking yourself, how have I how am I here? How is this happening to me right now in this moment? That is what we are talking about right now because both Sarah and I have experienced this recently, and it kind of shook us a little bit.
Mm-hmm.
Mhm.
Yeah. So I really love this thought process as far as looking at whether or not we are exempt as human beings, whether we're doing the work or not, whether we're utilizing the tools that we have, that we know how to use. None of us are exempt. And one of the things that I have been moving through is sort of this whole quote, just because you can doesn't mean you have to. So part of my experience has been that as I've become more embodied and as I have, and I know you resonate with this as well, but as we have done the work around stabilizing our nervous system, it's almost as if, okay, I can take this. So when these situations come up, we're suddenly like, oh, what am I putting up with? Why is this happening right now? And so then to me, it feels like just another layer deeper. So instead of looking at it as if we are moving backwards, it's really, okay, where are we going next? What is here to be looked at and seen now? And then how do we shift from that space?
Yeah, this has been huge for me. That whole
Mhm.
just because I can doesn't mean I have to. Yeah, I recently found myself in quite a few situations actually where I was like, okay, I am a sovereign woman. I can be centered, I can be grounded, I am operating from a healed space. So let me model this for someone else. Let me be the
Mhm.
example for someone else. I can have this conversation with someone. And then I went, wait, what is happening right now? Because just because I am coming from this space doesn't mean the other person is in a place to receive it. First of all, that was a big
Mhm.
lesson for me. And then second of all was, why am I doing this? Again, that just because I can doesn't mean I have to.
Right.
What's serving me? What's in my best interest right now? And it sure as hell
Mhm.
wasn't those conversations.
Right. Exactly. And so that's where, sort of the thought process that I was moving through when I too had these experiences come up. And I feel like, of course, right at the holidays, right, with all the work that we've been doing, right
Yeah.
at the holidays, um, it feels like learning how to recognize and use discernment where the frequencies and the energies of others are just not at capacity or at the same capacity. Not that there's a hierarchy or, any kind of level. It's just, does the frequency match? And learning how to look and say, okay, they're just really not there in that space to be able to receive. And so for me, just really looking deeply at, okay, how much am I actually willing to put up with just because I can? And then also looking back and finding out that, hey, I've kind of been in it for a minute, more than a minute.
Yeah, that was another thing that I was really checking into even savior complex. Like this stuff gets layered, right? This
Oh,
more
yeah.
you go, it goes deep, especially with us as spiral practitioners. I mean, that is the lifestyle, even is mirror theory and what we work with. And so it goes deep. Every time I sit there and I see what's happening, I always reflect it on myself first. And I really had to go, am I in savior complex right now? What is happening with me right now with this? and
Mhm.
then going, am I even in a place to give this right now? Because I'm sure as hell not in a place to receive this. And anyway, I found myself in a conversation where I was being gaslit like crazy. And I found myself falling back into these patterns, or what I thought was falling back into, when really it was that revisiting. And
Mhm.
that's when I stepped back and went, okay, I stepped back, had this whole outer body experience of what exactly is happening right now. And I was just in a place of observance.
Mhm. Yeah, that is exactly the same experience that I had. It was literally the outer body experience, just purely being an observation and realizing, oh my gosh, these patterns are still here. They are still showing up. And it's the energy of, you know, the other basically that these things were coming up with, was still triggering those patterns to come up. And it's the exact same thing, like you were sharing about the savior complex. It was that exactly. And I was so determined that I was not in that space. And so I then moved into a space of, okay, what's the difference in caring for and taking care of, and sort of all of the different perspectives you can look at that from. And this was even a conversation that came up with family over Christmas, as far as it being a generational pattern that shows up, the
Yeah.
savior complex. So,
Mhm.
yeah.
Okay. So real quick, how did you move out of that? Because I know that you and I immediately, as soon as it was happening, we got, we sent each other a message, said, holy, this is what has just happened. Found myself
Mhm.
in this experience. So how did you, like, this was the lesson learned. So
Mhm.
interesting, because you and I both go through our lessons at the same time. We have very parallel lives. So
Yes.
how did you step back from that moment and then move through that to even be in that, like, to actually go, okay, this isn't me falling backwards. This isn't me falling back into a pattern. This is me revisiting and having that in your awareness that, oh, these patterns are still here. The stories are
Mhm.
still here.
For me, I think the biggest thing was actually removing myself, and completely and totally shifting my reality. So, moving out of the space that I was in into a place of, okay, where can I be in order to have people respond to me differently? Where can I be in order to be seen? Where can I be in order to be validated? And that was literally going back home, because it helps you to be in a different energy, especially when you're in that energy on a regular basis, and you sort of be like, it causes, that typical classic isolation.
Mm-hmm.
And so for me, literally, it was just shifting the space that I was in, long enough to be able to have some different conversations and look at, okay, what's next? Where do I move from here?
That is so good. Yeah, you're right, because that is what happens, right? When we find ourselves in these abusive conversations where we are getting gaslit, we are being mentally, emotionally abused,
Hmm.
then we do tend to isolate and kind of go like, am I crazy right now? What's happening? And am I that person that they're saying I am? And you kind of like retract. And you,
Hmm.
even when you're not in that relationship anymore, because you and I are not in those relationships anymore. So
Right.
when you're not in that, that does, yeah, we tend to go back. So I love how you actually leaned into, I need community right now. I need people to surround myself with that love me, value me, see me
Hmm.
for who I am. And it is that validation again of, yeah, that's not who I am. And this is what happened. I did the same thing. Mine was over New Year's and it was really great. I just ended up having, um, again, shifting, right? We were supposed to have this big, huge party and have a lot of people over. And instead, we shifted our environment and we just had a very intimate, we went somewhere else, had a very intimate gathering with friends that are loving, are supportive, that type of thing. And it reminded me again of who I am and what I represent and the type of person that I am. And that's, I think, key, because instead of isolating, going out, finding your people, being surrounded by your people, having those different conversations and not dwelling on the story. That's what I noticed big time, was going,
Right.
okay, is this story or is this truth? And then letting the stories even play out so that I could discover, okay, because we do all this emotional clearing, we do all this work, we're breaking these ancestral and generational patterns,
Mm-hmm.
but then going, okay, wait, but that it's still there. And then I discovered, no, this is a story. And then I went into that whole mantra of just because I can doesn't mean I have to.
Right. Right. Exactly.
Yeah.
And then
Yeah.
at what point, so another thing that sort of came up for me was just at what point um is it too much? At
Mhm.
what point are we putting up with things that absolutely are not okay? So
Yeah, exactly. Because we do create our own reality. That's
mhm.
another thing too, is like we are so intentional and we're creating our own reality. And yeah, where are we doing this to ourselves?
Mhm.
Of course.
Mirror theory.
Yes, mirror theory. Okay. So, if you would like to learn more about this type of work and what we are doing in Red Lotus Life, we invite you to come and join us in the Red Lotus Life membership. It is a monthly membership where you just subscribe every single month. We do something different. We have courses, we have emotional clearings, we have people come in, experts that help us and support us along our way of all these different tools and self-discovery and just shedding these layers,
Mhm.
breaking this cycle. So we live our lives very intentionally, Sarah and I. One of the things that has also been very intentional is the actual um, offer, the actual price of the offer too. And yes, we're into numerology. Yes, we're into um, energetics and everything else, but the price is $19.99 for the Red
Mm.
Lotus Life membership. And I wanted Sarah to explain why it's $19.99.
The price is actually $19.99 because we really wanted it, as Lori was sharing, to be super intentional and not all just connected to, finances and stuff like that, but we wanted it to have a deeper meaning. And my son was actually born in my first son was born in 1999. And then he passed away at the age of 7. So he has been with Lori and I the entire process from start to where we are now, as far as all of our healing work and, getting to this place where now we are launching and launching this podcast and co-creating. So I am so deeply grateful that felt good to you as well.
Hmm. I know he has been here with us. We've been friends for a long time, sisters for a long time. Sarah's been with me since the beginning of Red Lotus Life and the creation of it and this sacred work. And it is deep, deep sacred work now that we're doing in Red Lotus Life around breaking ancestral and generational patterns and breaking that cycle of abuse, because it is a cycle and it is ancestral, it is generational, and it is at a cellular level. And so to have Connor part of this has just been like, I get emotional every time that I think about it. So we invite you to join us in Red Lotus Life, where we share all of our experiences. We do this work with you on a deep level and heal. We start to operate and heal from a self-regulated sovereign state. So
Yes.
yeah. Okay. Well, we invite you to join us. You can get all the information in the description below, also a link to join. And we can't wait to welcome you with open arms.